All right, AP Psych. So this is going into our second type of learning, which is operant conditioning. This will probably be more relevant to a lot of your schooling experience, especially after like preschool and kindergarten. Like you do your homework because it's graded. That's going to be operant conditioning, a lot of the stuff you do. So here's a quick warm up from classical. It goes over the elements and the principles. So if you want to pause it here and answer those questions, you can. If not, the next slide shows the answers. So pause it. If not, here's the answers. So again, those are all just different ways you would apply it to Pavlov. Notice we did differentiate between, whoops, we did, but someone put the wrong thing. I wonder if you can see all this. All right, so now that it is corrected, because the conditional response was not salivating at the food, but notice how I separated it and differentiated between the two, but those are the rest of the answers. Come on. So here we go. Main thing we're looking at today, operant conditioning, who's created it, who studied it, what are the reinforcement types, what are the punishment types, and then the difference between the two conditionings already. So when we look at the history of operant conditioning, Thorndike is technically going to be the first to study it, but he is not going to coin the term, so he doesn't get as much credit as B.F. Skinner. But basically what Thorndike does give us is the basis for operant conditioning, the law of effect, basically meaning if you have a behavior that's rewarded, you're going to be rewarded, you're going to repeat it. And if a behavior is punished extremely enough for you, you're going to stop it or it's going to be extinguished. That's basically one of the most obvious things ever stated, but he was the first in the late 1800s to really state this. Before Pavlov, Thorndike, and Skinner, learning was just happening. People who were smart were learning quicker, but they just had better access to material and also better study techniques too. Thorndike's study, this paves the way for B.F. Skinner. So there's going to be our guy B.F. He creates behavior control principles, like the idea of the computer running your education, the idea of different technology used in the classroom. B.F. Skinner would be very excited about, because that way the environment is dictating your learning, not necessarily just the teacher itself. But he's going to coin the term operant conditioning, and he's also going to get credit for it. He goes to Harvard at a young age. He invents ways to separate cranberries, ripe cranberries from unripe cranberries before machinery was introduced. He also creates, in laboratory settings, the first kind of homing bomb or traceable bomb or aim bomb with almost like a GPS in World War II. He would attach a GPS system to a pigeon or a radar system at the time, and then the bomb would actually follow it. Again, in laboratory settings, this worked, but this wasn't tried on the big war setting itself. So in controlled settings, he did create it, but it was never used in the real world. So here's his Skinner box. This is where he really gets his start. He teaches the rat to push this lever for food. And it's a whole process, but the rat knows to press the lever to get the reward, just like you know to do your homework to get the grade. If your teachers stop grading homework, you're probably going to stop doing it because now there's no reward or reinforcement for it. So the idea of us learning and creating memories to better serve ourselves later is kind of a mixed bag, because realistically, the main reason we do the stuff we do in high school is because it's graded and it's a reward. There's a benefit to it. Excuse me. So operant conditioning itself, basically, unlike classical, the behavior is going to be exhibited, then a stimulus, a reinforcement or a punishment is going to follow. Classical, it would be the stimulus coming before the behavior. So this is just kind of the direct opposite. Reinforcement, these are rewards. They're designed to repeat behavior. So whether we're using positive or negative reinforcement, we're trying to get that behavior to be repeated. Punishment, that's designed to stop the behavior, some type of adverse stimulus. And then there's the idea when we don't provide a consequence, reward or punishment, the behavior will stop. So extinction and punishment are usually going to have the same result, just by a different method. Adverse stimulus, no stimulus. It's almost like you're being ignored. Shaping, this is going to be the main process. So basically, when we look at operant conditioning, when we're trying to ingrain behavior in an organism or condition, obviously that organism is not going to exhibit the behavior right away, so we need to build up to it. Like here you have a manatee that is learning to press the button to switch cages so they can clean the tank. So notice he has kind of a treat on a stick and he's guiding the manatee to it. So eventually the stick won't be there, and then it would get the reward after it performs the behavior. Here you have kind of like a meerkat prairie dog. This has been shaped to test and mark where landmines are at. They've been using animals to detonate and mark these for a long time. The Russians in World War II used seals to blow up sea mines and used dogs to blow up tanks too. But that was all based on this idea of operant conditioning. We're basically shaping here. The closer you get to the desired target, the more reward is presented. So basically a step-by-step plan. So if we look at shaping an example from school, Johnny doesn't like to speak in front of the class, so we've got to make him do it. So step one, Johnny is made to stand from his seat, his bench. This is the first action. So as he stands there in front of the class, we give him a reward, or by his desk. Then we make him stand in front of the class. We give him the reward, closer to standing up and talking. Johnny now must stand in front of the class and say something, reward. Then Johnny must stand in front of the class, say hello, introduce himself. Again, gets a reward. Notice we're getting closer and closer to him making a presentation. Then step 5, he has to read his passage from the book to get his final reward. Sorry, not final reward, the second to final reward. Then Johnny gives his speech. But notice, here's the end result. Step by step by step by step by step. Closer, 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 closer. Then the final behavior itself. So our types of reinforcement and our types of punishment, we're going to have 2 types, positive and negative. Do not look at these terms in learning of positive and negative as being good or bad. It's the addition of something or it's the subtraction of something. The rest of the units, positive and negative, are going to mean good or bad. So reinforcement, obviously we would provide a reward after a behavior. We want that behavior to stick. We want it to be reinforced or repeated. So positive reinforcement, here we add a desirable stimulus to get you to do something. So we give you a paycheck after a week of work. We give you a hug for doing something. We give you candy in class for participating. Or we praise you in class for participating. Those are positive reinforcements. Now, is praise as good as a paycheck? No. But both are types of positive reinforcement. Negative reinforcement, this is where it can get a little tricky. So negative reinforcement, we're removing something we dislike. So negative reinforcement, we take the bad stimuli away from us. So you buckle your seatbelt when your car stops beeping. Why? Not necessarily to be safe, but to stop the beeping. You take Tylenol and Advil to relieve a headache. Those are both negative reinforcement. We do these things not to necessarily gain a reward, although the absence of pain is a reward. Realistically, you're removing the pain. You're removing something. You're removing the beeping. You're removing the headache. Beeping is annoying, so we're removing it. The headache is annoying, so we're removing it. If a teacher had a class that wasn't necessarily following the rules, they would list the homework problems on the board, and every time they did something good for so long, you would start to take away the homework. So there we're taking away, again, a bad stimulus. Homework, we're taking away a bad stimulus pain. We're taking away the annoying beeping, so that's negative reinforcement. We're taking away something bad, subtracting something bad to get them to repeat the behavior. Positive reinforcement, we're adding something good. So types of reinforcers, primary reinforcer, this is innately reinforcing stimulus like food or drink. So candy, like if you have a 1-year-old or you babysit, you can probably bribe them with a Jolly Rancher instead of giving them money. The child knows the Jolly Rancher is good, but the child has not learned that money can buy more Jolly Ranchers. So conditioned reinforcer or secondary reinforcer, this is learned through experience and association. money, presents, objects of desire, we learn that those are desirable, but we also first learn that like money becomes important because it can help us purchase food and drink. So these are stuff you're born with, young kids really like. As we get older, our rewards change. Why? Our experience changes. So punishment, here we have that aversive event that decreases the behavior. So none of this is going to be good or bad. And again, positive, we're adding something bad. Negative, we're taking away something good. So positive punishment, we administer an adverse stimulus. So you get a spanking, a parking ticket, extra homework, extra chores. Notice we're adding something you dislike. Pain, a ticket that goes against your license, extra homework, extra chores, stuff that we probably don't see desirable. Parents, authority figures are administering, so you stop that behavior. Negative punishment, we take away something good. If you're a child of the 2000s, this is most likely how your parents have been punishing you. They don't necessarily give you a spanking anymore. They take away stuff you like. Your access to friends, your phone, free time, we take away those things. So the negative punishment, losing driving privileges, losing phone, a timeout as a kid. I mean, a timeout as a kid was one of your worst punishments, and all you had to do was sit and be quiet. But again, that took away a lot of your joy as a kid. So negative punishment, we take away something good, something you like. Positive punishment, we take away we add something you dislike. Like if we had regular lunch and you guys would trash the courtyard, Mr. Smith would come out and talk about giving you a negative punishment by not allowing you to eat in the courtyard. And then the last part, classical versus operant. Classical, the behavior is determined by what precedes it. So a bell, a light dictates something. A bell triggers you to leave. So you really don't have a lot of voluntary action here. The environment is going to dictate what controls your behavior with the stimuli. Operant conditioning, you do have more voluntary power in this. The environment may condition you to do these things, but eventually you do have a little bit of free will to choose not to or do it. But here we have the behavior is determined by what follows it. So you do something good, you get a reward, now you know to repeat that behavior. But basically the biggest difference is the order. Stimulus then behavior, behavior then stimulus. That's the idea. So we'll stop there. Next section will be schedules of reinforcement, which will be basically just when we reward, how often we reward, and the difference between delayed reinforcement and immediate reinforcement.